Spectrum wants to hear your views. You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond. Kizito. On Spectrum tonight, Uganda at 50. How can the country deal with its political troubles and ensure maturity and a peaceful transfer of power? As Uganda prepares to mark 50 years of independence, many civic and opinion leaders are calling for a paradigm shift in the way the governance issues of the country are handled. Civil society organizations launched a campaign to have presidential term limits reinstated, saying the removal of the term limits was a grave mistake in the first place. Religious leaders also have launched a campaign targeting the main political actors in this country, asking them to stop what they call selfishness and think about the nation. Others they advise that Mr. Museveni should not contest again, but top religious leaders in Western Uganda are now saying that both Mr. Museveni and Dr. Kizito must quit and accept succession within their respective political parties. Dr. Kizito has already indicated that he will not contest against President Museveni again, and he has also indicated that he will not contest for the presidency of his party, that's the FDC, although this does not rule him out as a party presidential flag bearer. New reports now indicate that President Museveni is ready to leave, but the NRM party spokesperson Mary Karoro Okwiri says his departure will be decided by the party and that no one can push him out. One of the political challenges Uganda has faced from independence is a failure to have a peaceful transfer of power. The opposition has already turned to activism, trying to remove the power from the NRM under the banner of the A4C. They say they want to use peaceful means through rallies and walk-to-walk protests. So tonight we ask, what political decisions should Uganda take to achieve a political maturity and ensure a peaceful transfer of powers for the first time in all its history? Also, if Mr. Museveni and Dr. Kizito left the political scene now, would this address the deep political challenges Uganda faces today? Our guests tonight, Dr. Nabwiso, former Kagoma County MP, coming from the Forum for Democratic Change Party. You're most welcome, Dr. Nabwiso.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful to be here.
We're also joined by the retired Major Honorable Okwiri Rabwoni, Executive Director, Center for Constitutional Governance. He was in the 6th Parliament. You're most welcome, Honorable Rabwoni.
Thank you very much. Good evening, listeners.
Professor Dr. Nabwiso, talk to us about this statement that President Museveni was quoted, he was quoted in the media today as saying that he might be planning to retire in 2016. Will that cool political temperatures in this country now?
Maybe temporarily. But you see, why should President Museveni, tell us when he will leave? Is it his choice or is it the people's choice? Mary Karoro has said no one can push the president out.
Yes.
But who brought President Museveni to power? It's the people. So I mean, if the people say that he should leave, I believe that it would be sensible for him to go. Now, the second question you have asked me, will this change the situation significantly in the politics and maybe socio-economic, political environment in the country? The answer is no. We have created many problems which need a lot of thinking, a lot of discussions with different key stakeholders to ensure that Uganda remains on track. The macroeconomics of this country, for example, need to be addressed. We cannot be depending on big investors who come here to create jobs, for a few jobs, when we know that we have failed to control population growth in this country. So there are very many things to address.
All right.
And corruption is one of them. Okay. So the president might go, but he might leave us with the problem of people have been stealing this from the coffers of this country.
All right, you talk about focus, the economic focus, population growth. That's a very broad topic. We might not be able to cover it today. But briefly, could you tell us what you think is Uganda's fundamental political problem? 50 years, a man should be grown up with children.
Well, the problem is very simple, that we have never seen Uganda a president hand over power peacefully in this country. The second aspect of it is that this country has been controlled by Ghana rule from 1966 to present. It is Ghana rule which directs the lives of Ugandans. And the other political issue is that the ordinary person doesn't actually have a voice. The elections are not free and fair. This country has never conducted a free and fair election from 1980. Very many problems, but I've given you three at least.
Even the 1980 election was unfair, you say?
Oh, of course it was.
Honorable Major Okwiri Rabwoni, what's your own prognosis? Why does Uganda fail to grow up in its politics 50 years now?
Yeah, Uganda has failed to grow because of two fundamental reasons. The narrow economy, which leaves our people disenfranchised. During election time, politicians hand out 5,000 shilling notes, 10,000 shilling notes. So there's a big democracy deficit arising from poverty. So poverty can be a basis for democracy deficit. That is from the demand side. Democracy from the demand side. And the other side, which the doctor was talking about, is the supply side. Is that the political space has been narrowed since the abrogation of the first constitution in 1966 and the subsequent militarization of politics. So we had thought that after 1986 would work out a socio-political framework under the 95 Constitution, which would usher in a breath of fresh air politically, and also work towards improving the economy such that our people can have that dignity. We can do them economic justice. They can have the dignity to honor their vote and bring leaders of good repute, of capability into office. So in my opinion, it's those twin factors.
Well, but
poverty on one side,
yes,
and repressive and
bad politics.
And bad politics.
Well, but some people think bad politics stretched from 1966 to 86. When the fundamental change came, everything ended. We'll have elections every 5 years now since 1996. And the winner takes it home.
Oh, well, having elections per se is not a panacea for democracy. Elections are just one element through which the people express their political demands.
Yes.
But elections should be accompanied by other elements.
Like what?
Like I talked about
economic freedoms.
Economic freedom, prosperity.
Which the NRM is working on very, very hard.
I'm afraid this is being paralyzed by corruption, like you rightly pointed out.
We'll dig deeper on that a little bit later. Listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio, and tonight, Uganda at 50. How can the country deal with its political woes and ensure maturity and a peaceful transfer of power? 50 years on, we've never had a peaceful transfer of power. President Museveni has been in power longer than all previous leaders combined. He marked 26 years in January. He came after a 5-year bush war, which ended in 1986. In 1980, there had been an election which he said had been contested, so he went to launch his guerrilla war, which he won on January the 26th, 1986. Dr. Nabwiso, what is the essence of term limits, having them in the constitution? Some people say they might force you to send away a good leader when you still need them.
But what is a constitution? A constitution, very briefly, is like the Bible and the Quran. No bishop or no clergy will go to preach in a church without referring to the Bible.
It's a book of a covenant,
yes,
a relationship.
And the same is the Quran. And the Constitution, in simple terms, is the covenant or agreement between people and their leaders. The Constitution is the benchmarks against which you judge whether a leader is performing properly. And since it is that agreement between the leaders and the people, you cannot afford to break it.
Well, you can change it a little bit.
And change it at any time. But how do you change it? For example, I respect my friend here who was in the 6th Parliament.
Yes.
Which did a reasonable job.
The essential ministers.
Yes. In the 7th Parliament, in which I was a member of Parliament, in 2005, members were bribed with 5,000 shillings and 5 million shillings, those of the NRM, to change the constitution. Some of us refused, and I'm happy that I'm here in this debate, because so many years ago, some of the people thought we are mad, and I'm glad that the bishops have come in. So, a constitution is the document that ordinary politicians, that everyday politicians have to use. And if a politician does not read the constitution and does not follow that constitution, then he's using his personal or his or her personal.
Well, but a constitution, unlike the religious books that you just quoted, can be changed. This one was changed for the better of this country, so we can have a good revolutionary staying together in place to change things for the better of the people.
The 1995 constitution, when it was amended in 2005, it was not changed for the good of this country. Because as of now, the president is still holding this country at ransom.
What do you mean by that?
No, he says he will leave when he wants, or
when the people want.
But which people?
The ones who keep voting, you mean?
No, can't a president say enough is enough on my side? And Nyerere did it. Mandela did.
But if you have a marriage and it's working, why walk out on it? Why wait until naturally?
No, the marriage is not working. It is not working out properly.
Honorable Rabwoni, talk to us about that. The people love this gentleman. He's still strong.
Why do you wait for them to spit on you? But going back to the entrenchment of the presidential term limits in the Constitution, the Constituent Assembly, which promulgated the 1995 Constitution, did it on the basis of the Semfebo report. There had been a countrywide tour of the Semfebo report, and there was overwhelming support for presidential term limits to be entrenched in the Constitution. So the delegates of the Constituent Assembly who sat
in 1993
to write 93, 95 93, 94, 95
yes,
we are taking into consideration the views of the people, that they felt that given our history, our difficult history, and given the nature of our economy and all these other factors and our fragile, young and weak institutions, it was important that presidential term limits are entrenched in our Constitution. And to speak more about, because those who talked about the waiving of Constitution sometimes quote democracies like Britain,
which don't have term limits.
These happen because certain the institutions of governance are strong and mature. For example, Margaret Thatcher was kicked out by the Conservative Party.
Yes.
Tony Blair he had been elected by the electorate, by the way.
Yes.
3 running terms of Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair, but both of them were taken out by their parties.
Yeah.
Which means the institutions are strong enough to say, okay, even if you are popular, we feel that we need a change of guard, and parties can do it. Recently, even under the South Africa, under the ANC,
yes,
Thabo Mbeki was asked to leave. He was asked to leave by the ANC. So where institutions are strong, and in fact, the CNN, if you listen carefully to what His Excellency the President said on CNN, it is that it will be subject to the party allowing him
to leave. They might tell him not to go.
So we have to convince the president, to convince the party, to convince the president.
Dr. Nabwiso, the religious leaders say they want him to leave, to actually say it in no uncertain terms, categorically, that is leaving. Why do the religious leaders, they should stick to the Bible and the Quran, taking people to heaven?
Well, what is very interesting, I've come here with a book, a letter written by Archbishop Joseph Kiwanuka.
As the first black African.
The first black Catholic Archbishop south of the Sahara, which he wrote in November 1961.
61?
Yes, he anticipated this.
I wasn't even born at that time.
Yeah, you were not born. I was born at that time. Now, he says that the jurisdiction of the church over man is much higher than that of the state.
Yes.
Since the church works in the supernatural order, because it talks about God and so on.
I'm going to heaven.
The state works in the natural order, the temporal world, where you're talking about
food and so on.
Yes, where you can
furniture.
Stand up and distribute
soap,
T-shirts at a rally and promise to do this. So the church is looking at the human being from several aspects, from the religious point of view.
Yes.
The relationship between man and God, and it is also looking at the problems that man encounters in a day-to-day living.
Yes.
Because that man who is also religious is also worried about his bread, about his children, about education, the temporal things,
yes,
or the earthly things. So the church cannot keep quiet. I mean, you cannot separate religion from the state. This is one of the reasons why the church is responding in that way. Two, you should know that the history of the church in Uganda has shown that these conflicts have been there.
Yes.
There were conflicts between missionaries and Kabaka Mwanga, the Archbishop Kiwanuka and the Obote government, Archbishop Urumu and Amin, and also the bishops who went to see Obote in 1982. They have been concerned, these religious leaders. This is not the first time.
So it's not because they hate our president?
No. Because they know that the president is also a human being. And you must not forget that the religious people have fought against governments in many countries, not only in Uganda.
Major Rabwoni, what are Uganda's main achievements since independence? The good things that you can talk about?
One is that we have managed to write a constitution despite removing some critical areas like the presidential term limits, which we did. Secondly, we have had a good record in regard to our Pan-African duties. We helped Southern Sudan in the fight for self-determination.
Rwanda.
We helped Rwanda in the fight for self-determination, to stop genocide, and we have also helped Somalia to stabilize.
You didn't take power. You were part of that war, I think, the RPF war, I believe.
Absolutely. So we have a good, relatively done bigger than what is expected of us, or what is expected of a small country with such an economy.
And what kind of lost opportunities would you point at? What things have we lost that we could have grappled, got hold of it?
Economically, we would have moved faster if we had tackled the Council of Corruption. In terms of institution building, we would have. It was dangerous and reckless to tamper with the Constitution.
Yes.
10 years after its promulgation, and I think the questions of the conflict in northern Uganda were poorly handled, and then militarization and commercialization of politics is becoming an increasing danger to the future of the state.
Dr. Nabwiso, You can talk to us about that. But some people you've said that President Museveni said he's going to retire in 2016. He's it's only a matter of formality that his party relieves him of his duties so he can go and do other things. Do you think he's likely to change his mind between now and then?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think he'll change his mind?
I don't think so. By the way, let me just make one small comment on before I answer that question. One of the things that Ugandans have failed to do is to sing the national anthem properly.
Yes.
Kagoma, the late Kagoma, once told me, and this is true, that the first line, the first stanza of his anthem is not sung properly.
How is it supposed to?
The music is supposed to be so mi la 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 la, but they sing so do mi do, oh Uganda, not oh Uganda.
Yes.
You see? So if people fail to sing their national anthem properly,
they can't love that country.
That's what. Yeah, but also to follow up what my colleague has said,
yes.
I think Uganda has done extremely well in terms of creating more education opportunities. And Uganda was the first country to have a university here. And Ugandans have pioneered almost every academic field you can think of. They've done well. We are now even getting to a situation whereby the first Archbishop of the Anglican Church at Canterbury is likely to be a Ugandan. But I think it's going to be partly because the British highly respect the late Archbishop Orum for the stand he took, and that's why they have even built a statue on
memorial for him
at Westminster Cathedral.
Right.
Now let me come to this issue of will the president leave? I think he's just giving a lame excuse. He's not willing to leave because if I want to leave personally, Nabwiso, I simply wake up and say, no, I'm going to stop here.
Like Bess just said.
Yes.
Well, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. We're going for a break. We'll be back to stay tuned to Radio 1.
When Junior lost his appetite, his mother tried all methods to get him to eat. She tried scary stories.
Eat, Tommy, eat, or the big black elephant will come and eat all your food.
She tried magic.
Tommy, if you eat your food, I will turn this handkerchief into sweets. Look, bumble, bumble, boom, boom.
Then she discovered Apetol multivitamin syrup with lysine.
Mommy, I finished all the food. I am number 1.
Apetol multivitamin with lysine is helping mothers to turn mealtime frustration to a fun moment. Apetol has a great taste and contains lysine, which quickly improves your child's appetite and supports healthy growth. Apetol, health for life.
Special fares to the US, London, China, and India, with extra baggage allowance on selected flights. To book your flight, contact your local travel agent or call us on 041-7800-900 or book online at QatarAirways.com/UG. Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline.
Terms and conditions apply.
Ça va, hello. My name is Kogole Andemina, very serious Congolese tailor. People see me when they want to look good. People leave my shop looking like superstars of TV. But however much I make you look beautiful or even sexy like me, I cannot change the person inside, the real you. Kind of like Uganda Waraji. It has this beautiful look, but inside they have maintained the same old spirit that we know. The same old spirit we have known for many years in a new suit. New look. Oh, you need to try it.
Enjoy the new look Uganda Waraji. The same Ugandan spirit with a new look. Uganda Waraji. Same spirit, new look. Excessive consumption of alcohol is harmful to your health. Not for sale to persons under 18 years. Please drink responsibly.
Radio 1, FM 90.
Welcome back to Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight on Spectrum Uganda at 50. How can this country deal with its political challenges and ensure maturity and a peaceful transfer of power? Our guests tonight, Dr. Frank Nabwiso, former Kagoma County MP, also coming from the Forum for Democratic Change Party, retired Major Honorable Okwiri Rabwoni, Executive Director for the Center for Constitutional Governance. He was in the 6th Parliament. You two will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Dr. Nabwiso, how could we have improved things so we get full capacity apart from democracy and politics?
Well, I think Uganda has a chance of being an economic power. We have good soil, we have the rains, we have hard-working people, we have people who love peace. We could have done that, and we have a very, very strong manpower. I think what has been missing is the leadership, to lead the people, to do things for themselves. For example, this country could have embarked on creating small-scale industries. During Amin, this country was maintained by these Katwe, small artisans. I remember when I organized the first post-Amin and post-Obote government show at Lugogo. We brought in these fellows and they organized the show themselves. I mean, there are a lot of things that Ugandan could do for themselves. The problem is that we have bothered them, we politicians, thinking that we are going to provide solutions to their problems, instead of leaving them to direct, to change the course. The Murwanas, the whatnot could be assembled to really help us to write an economic program for this country. Look at the NADS program.
Yes. Total failure.
Total failure. Why? Because we
waste a lot of money in it.
Yeah,
doesn't work.
We destroyed the district farm institutes which were training people. We destroyed the cooperatives because we are thinking of a barter trade system which did not work.
To sabotage.
This is what I meant by macroeconomic policies of this country. They have gone berserk. And what you need now is a government that allows the technocrats and the people to actually come out with proper programs, rather than those which favor a particular political program of re-election.
Talking about technocrats being allowed space, how do you rate the institutional capacity of the institutional building credentials of the NRM?
No, the NRM has not built institutions, unfortunately. Take the National Planning Authority as an example.
Yes.
You just read the records of what it has done since it was established in 2001.
They give us the NDP.
Look at the Economic Research Policy Institution at Makerere.
Economic Policy Research
the National Science and Technology Council. What do these institutions do? They have not been enabled to do the work.
Major Rabwoni, what would Museveni's legacy be if he decided to leave us in 2016?
I'm afraid...
In your view, you worked with him, then you left his favor.
Oh yes. I can see, apart from what I said internationally, and the peace which was won by the NRA UPDF, I'm afraid very many of the economic gains will be washed away.
What do you mean?
By the continued stay of the president in power, because the NRM has failed in itself to build itself into a viable institution. NRM as a political party has failed dismally.
Why? Because they don't have a Uganda house of their own? What do you mean by that?
You go around the country.
26 years they don't have a single floor building. Go on.
When you fail to build a party, you can't build institutions outside the party, because the party is supposed to be the engine of ideas, the engine of policy, which it sells to government, and then government sells to the country. Now, if you fail to build a political party, how do you build the other institutions?
You are being evicted from a single floor building in Kololo. 26 years, not even one unit to belong to the NRM party.
Really, look at the leadership, the top leadership of the NRM. Tell me who talks to the other over a cup of coffee.
What do you mean?
Honorable Mbabazi, Honorable Kadaga, Honorable Tafire, Honorable Mbabazi.
People differ over policy. That's a vibrant party then.
But I've never seen a party that's so fractured in the history of Uganda.
But they've been fractured. They still vote NRM. They've not crossed to other parties.
You read through the media what has been happening to the party. I can't even begin to talk about what's happening in the NRM. In fact, if you talk to some of the top leaders of the NRM, it's like talking to the opposition.
Well, it's a vibrant party.
What happened on national television? What happened on national television at Nambole in September 2010 was the death of the NRM, because we could see that the party was tearing itself apart. So the failure of the national resistance movement to build itself into a credible party with a solid ideology and think tanks which could evolve policy to feed into the government machinery for implementation has led to a one-man show where the president is doing all the work: intelligence, diplomacy, the economy, the military. Name it. Even if I want to resolve a land dispute between me and you right now,
that's because he's a visionary.
I'd have to go
head and shoulders above everybody else.
Maybe the best way of judging whether NRM has become a strong party is if President Museveni stepped aside.
Can it survive without him?
Yes.
The party?
For example, if you look at what happened in Kenya, KANU, which was in power for very many years, and which was led by first Kenyatta and Moi, where is it now today? Now, and compare that with Chama Cha Mapinduzi, which started as a TANU. From 1961,
yes,
the party has remained in power, but presidents have come and gone. And this is one of the benchmarks we can use. If NRM wants to tell us that it can survive
without Museveni
and run this country, then let them do the necessary.
Like what? Well,
yeah, because
he mentioned the differences, but the opposition is not very different. They're not singing in unison.
No. We cannot sing in unison when there are so many political parties.
No, FDC, for instance, the leading opposition party.
No,
you're not that much united, are you?
How old are we? We're just a few years, and NRM how long? What I'm trying to say is let NRM allow the president, since he wants the party to allow him to leave, and let's see what will happen to the whole party plus the over, I don't know how many presidential advisors they are today. I think they are over 100. Now we will see what they will do.
They'll advise maybe the next president. We don't anyway. Listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. You'll be able to call in shortly. Our topic tonight, Uganda at 50. How can the country deal with this political woes and ensure maturity and a peaceful transfer of power? We actually invited Mr. David Mafabi, Presidential Private Secretary on Political Affairs and Institution. He's also a member of the party, no doubt. We invited him to come and join this show. He could not come, even though he had said earlier that he would show up. That would have helped us balance out this debate, since the two officials we have come not from the NRM. Major Rabwoni, how will oil be managed after President Museveni, in case he leaves in 2016? Who's going to be able to manage it in his absence?
That's an interesting question, because oil management does not depend on the presence of President Museveni on the political scene or not.
He discovered the oil.
Oh, no, by the way, even on that, even the colonialists had already indicated that the presence of oil in the 1930s.
1920s.
So, in the 1920s. So everybody knew that there was oil. All we didn't know was in what quantities. So what the president did was to work hard to see whether it was in commercially viable quantities or not. But turning back to the management, the problem of institution building will also haunt the oil governance, the questions of oil governance, if we're not careful. Because if we don't get the legal frameworks correct, if we don't get the institutional frameworks correct, if we don't consider important areas of governance correct, if we don't fight corruption, if we don't take environmental concerns into perspective, if we don't look deeply into land issues, if we don't involve the local actors, if we don't democratize political space, then as day follows night, we will have a problematic oil industry.
In your view, how do we avoid it? With or without the discovery of the oil?
Democracy. Because without empowering Parliament to be an actor in the oil debate, without empowering civil society to be an actor in the oil debate, without empowering the political parties, you can't get a resource which is going to double our GDP and you put it under your armpit and you expect it to succeed. So the exploitation of this resource will lie in how democratic our political space is. That all these issues that I've mentioned, the institutions, the legal frameworks, the environmental concerns, the land issues, the revenues, how do you share the revenues which come and how do you strategically deploy them in the economy? All these factors are critically important, and you can only do them if you have a parliament participating, if you have people, representatives at local councils participating, if you have civil society participating, but not a preserve of the presidency.
Well, Dr. Nabwiso, before you hear from the listeners, how are we faring, looking at the 50 years, how are we faring compared to other countries that got independence in the 60s, around about the same time as we did?
We are faring badly, and as I was saying, Uganda could have been far much ahead. I happened to do my master's degree on Zambian issues, the Zambian Copper Belt specifically. Now, just compare this. Zambia got its independence in 1964. There was no university in Zambia until 1966. There were fewer than 100 people with university degrees and less than 1,000 with school certificate. But by 1933, Uganda had a PhD holder. You know, we started having PhDs in the 1930s.
Who were university in 1922, I think, University College.
No, but these fellows, the late Prince Kiki Nyabongo got his PhD from...
A PhD in 1933, that is remarkable.
Yeah, he got his in 1947 from University of Oxford. But Kalibala Balintuma got his from Yale in 1937.
University of Yale.
So Uganda had every chance, every opportunity. Even the first woman to get a university degree, Munyoro, Dr. Sarantilo, is still living. The first one in East Africa. So with that manpower, Uganda could have had remarkable progress and we would be somewhere. And if we had had, what we are crying for, democracy and so on, this country would have done a lot. But there we are.
This is Spectrum on Radio 1. You can call in a PhD holder in Uganda in 1933. It took other countries 30 years to catch up to even have the first one. You can call in now. Our number 0414-348-111, 0312-260-390, 0312-261-390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you are calling from. Spectrum, hello?
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Your name? Yes. Yes, hello. Yes, you're live on Spectrum. Your name? Good evening, sir. Your name?
My name is Paul. I'm calling from Uganda.
Yes, Paul. Spectrum, hello.
Yes, good evening, Edmond.
Good evening, your name?
Yeah, this is UBC here in Kagoma.
Yes.
Now,
Spectrum, hello. High political tensions should be put down. Spectrum, hello.
Edmond.
Yes, my friend.
Good evening.
Good evening, your name again?
Now, thanks for hosting Dr. Nabwiso and Judge Major.
Yes, Jimmy.
Professor James is the name.
Yes, Jimmy.
Now,
All right, let's take one final caller. Yes, your name?
Edmond, good evening, sir.
Good evening, your name, sir?
I'm Edmond Nabwiso.
Yes.
Good evening, this opportunity, Chairman.
Let's get back to the studio. Major Rabwoni.
Yeah, on the question of how far Uganda has gone, the question of democratization is one of the twin pillars to ensure stability and national development is very critical. If we could take, I want to give you an example, just one sample in our political life, the institution of the army, the armed forces. Uganda had the King's African Rifles, which later became the Uganda Army. We destroyed the Uganda Army in 1971 and brought in the UNLA. And then we destroyed the UNLA.
Uganda Army was Amin's army.
That was Amin's army.
Yes.
Then we destroyed the UNLA to bring in the UPDF.
Right.
NRA UPDF.
Yes.
Now, that's a very costly process of breaking down a national institution like the armed forces, that's the Army and Air Force and Navy, and rebuilding them afresh. So if you take that as a case study and replicate it in all the other institutions of government, You can imagine how costly the question of lack of democracy has been in our country.
Yes.
So, in order to seriously think about the future of this country, democracy cannot be put out of the equation, and anybody thinking of a peaceful Uganda, a peaceful post-Museveni dispensation, has to carefully think about this transition question. How do we move to a post-Museveni dispensation?
Well, he doesn't stand in 2016. What's the problem? Well, what happened?
Is that we start planning now.
Well, he said
then.
He says in an interview just published, his party might ask him to step aside, and he has no problem with that.
But will his party want some Kakoza come from somewhere and persuade him that we need your services, sir?
His wisdom and guidance.
And your wisdom and guidance?
If Dr. Besigye is stepping aside, would it make it easier for President Museveni to not continue standing?
I don't know. That question would be best put to His Excellency the President himself. But if he had wanted, he would have done it a long time ago, even before Besigye appeared on the political scene.
Dr. Nabwiso, but Dr. Besigye also should not stand. Some people think he might come as a presidential flag bearer for your party. What do you have up your sleeves in Najana?
I don't think President Museveni's control of the country of Uganda should be based on Besigye. I don't know whether why people think that Besigye is a factor. But today, what we are dealing with is this person called President Museveni. We are saying that there are leaders in Africa to emulate. These include General Rawlings, who was an army man.
Jerry Rawlings of Ghana.
Yes, he wrote a constitution, and after giving it to Ghanaians, he left power. President Mandela, after becoming president for just a short time, he left power. Nyerere did it, and so on, and Moi has left power. So these leaders did not leave power. They did not argue that their opponents should also agree to leave the political scene before they leave power. No. The argument to me is baseless. President Besigye of FDC has just come into the political limelight, and he has contested 3 times. If Ugandans don't want him, he has said, he will not stand again. So I don't think anybody should discuss the Besigye issue here.
In fact, I feel very humble whenever I go to Tanzania and in state ceremonies. When Mwalimu was still alive, he comes, and then Al-Hassan Mwinyi comes and sits, and then Benjamin Mkapa comes and sits, and then this one, Chikwete, who is in his last term of office. You can. These are our neighbors with whom we share very many commonalities.
Uganda, we don't have a single one in that category. Of course, when President Museveni came, he ended the inflation of leaders. We had a lot. If you look at the chart, we had many former leaders. Now we're clean. 25 years marching. Dr. Nabwiso, as we leave, somebody asked Mr. Okwiri, intelligentsia have mismanaged the country. You people have let us down with your PhDs. You can't help us to arrange these things.
It's not the intelligentsia who have mismanaged the country. Again, let's look at what Nyerere did. Nyerere was the first graduate in Tanzania, was the first one to get a university degree. What he did was to collect all the intelligence around him and made them to understand his philosophy of humility, of not accepting corruption, of accepting to be guided by the people, not build the castles for himself, not move in big convoys of vehicles. This is what Nyerere did, and the people followed him.
He didn't want to build castles?
No, he didn't. He was a down-to-earth person. So it is not the intelligentsia. It is how you manage the resources that you have. And the question is, which goes to this Mr. Okwiri, how has President Museveni managed the intellectual and academic and what resources of this country?
Well, we shall end on that note, that question begging there. Thank you very much indeed to our dear guests. Dr. Frank Nabwiso, former Kagoma County MP, now in the Forum for Democratic Change Party. Thank you for coming to Spectrum.
Thank you.
You used to be a strong NRM cadre in the very, very early days.
I was.
I won't release more details than those.
Secretary of the External Committee.
There you are. Thank you very much indeed, retired Major Honorable Okwiri Rabwoni, Executive Director, Center for Constitutional Governance. Thank you very much for coming to Spectrum.
Thank you very much.
He was in the 6th Parliament. That's about 3 parliaments behind this one. We invited Mr. David Mafabi, Presidential Private Secretary on Political Affairs and Institutions. He could not come. He comes from the NRM. He would have helped us balance things out. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond, Kizito Spectrum. We'll be back tomorrow.